Joining us, very familiar guests on our show, we've got Brian Doyle and Paul Salewski joining us from Doyle Salewski. Great to have you gentlemen back on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Always interesting topics, and really the focus today, and it was quite fascinating to see just how much we're talking about debt and the interest and penalties that can actually be kind of halted once this proposal comes together. And so Paul, kind of take us through this, because I think for a lot of people who have a large amount of debt, penalties, interest, that's a huge chunk of money that they could be saving on.
Sure is. You know, if you have $50,000 of credit card debt at 20%, that's, you know, $10,000 a year. It's a lot of money. When you file a proposal, what happens is that everything stops. There's no payments made to creditors, nor does interest continue to accrue. Basically, you file a proposal, 45 days later it's voted upon. Once it's accepted, the plan is what you pay. Whatever you and the creditors agree to is the amount you pay. Now,
Brian, you were just talking to an individual yesterday. It's as quick as coming up with this proposal, sending it off, because at that moment that it's been sent, things stop.
So I met with this individual yesterday in Arm Prior, and this morning we'll file his proposal and all his interest and penalties will stop. And then the proposal's voted on within 45 days, and then the interest and penalties will be frozen as at today's date.
Which is huge. Even if there has to be tweaking to the proposal at a later date, still everything at that point.
It's all frozen as at today for that fellow. So it's something that credit counseling agencies and debt settlement companies can't do. They don't have the power to do that. This fellow had been to see, or over the internet, through two credit counseling debt settlement agencies. He'd paid them over $3,000 and got nowhere. His bank was continuing to call them. But when he told them he was going to see Doyle Salewski, the fellow said, just give me the estate number when you get it from Mr. Doyle, and that'll be fine, thank you.
It's got to be pretty amazing when a name like that can carry that much weight with the organization.
The other thing, too, with respect to proposals and interest, is that interest on CRA debt is also stopped and frozen. Interest penalties are the same as regular interest on credit cards, for example. A lot of people don't understand that when your tax debt's not paid and you file the proposal, that interest stops as well. Penalties stop as well.
All right, so the calls and the letters coming to us from the government in itself,
that's right.
those
and that's
two.
Something else credit counseling firms and debt settlement companies can't do.
You look at that, how frustrating it must have been for an individual to have gone through already $3,000, which could have at one point already been put towards his own proposal.
That's right, yeah.
With everything else stopped. Are we looking at it right now? I think people are starting to get anxious as this time of year rolls around, that they are looking at the debt that they have already accumulated, what is happening, and yet we are entering into a spending season right now. Do you find that your clients right now that panic, that anxiety can start to settle in too?
It can, but I think a lot of people this time of year kind of ignore that, and they go full bore and borrow and buy and buy and buy, and really the problems don't come back till after Christmas. That's when the bills come in, and that's when they have to be paid.
Do you anticipate that unfortunately you'll see that, and you'll see the reaction coming once the January bills start to come through?
The calls get busier in January, yes, and generally we're busier in February, March, April once the Christmas season has come through its cycle.
And they realize that they can't get it back on track. When you're looking at getting back on track, I think the biggest thing is the penalties and the interest. I think, do they feel though that once that stops, that they can finally start to make a dent on the actual debt that is owed?
Well, once they see that they have one number that they can focus on and one monthly payment, that's the issue. One monthly payment for 24 months, 36 months, even 60 months. But that's all they have to pay, and then they're debt free.
And we've been talking about this a ton on Ask the Experts.
That's right.
Just, you know, what eventually happens and how this actually kind of gets paid back to the creditors, which are the biggest concern at this point, is that they're still anticipating their money.
Yes, but they've also agreed to the proposal, so they know exactly what they're getting. They've agreed to it. And frankly, a proposal is better than a bankruptcy, so the creditors are happy as well.
Absolutely. Well, we wish this gentleman in Arm Prior the best of luck, but of course he made the call, and it's amazing to see the power of a name saying, okay, we'll wait for that number and we're good to go. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thanks again, too, for the support that you had for our Help Santa Toy Parade and all the things that you're doing in our community.